Welcome back. Now, while short-term measures to cushion the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic are welcome, South Africans want policy interventions to ease poverty and inequality. President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the reintroduction of the Social Relief of Distress grant and indicated that the government is considering the introduction of a basic income grant. These announcements follow the recent unrest in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. While the drivers of the turmoil are multidimensional, one clear factor is the worsening poverty and hunger that has occurred under COVID-19. Dr. Yule Davids is a research director in the Developmental, Capable and Ethical State Division of the Human Sciences Research Council, and he joins us now to discuss the policy options and what would work best. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. So let me just start off the bat by saying, some have speculated, had there not been a cessation or termination of the top-ups to social grants, would the situation have been different?
It's quite clear that broad-based support is needed, and I don't think the situation would have changed because the vast majority in our country is, poor, and this situation is further deepened in COVID and hungry. I mean, that's some of the major drivers why there is a broad-based support needed.
Okay, so maybe let me just first start by asking you to explain to us where we are. And I'm talking here about the official poverty lines. Where is it and how is that determined?
Okay, first of all, just to give you an idea that we've conducted a survey, but the official poverty line, the basic poverty line stands at 585, okay? Now, this is based on the food basket, but if you compare the 585 rand, which is the bottom, and the 350, you can see already the difference. But, you have to see that in context with the upper poverty line, which is determined at approximately 1,200 and about, say, 60 rand. Now, this specifically translates almost to 50 rand a day. Now, if you consider a 50 rand a day buying a bread and just milk, you have very little left, let alone for all the other expenses. So, there's a certain need that, financial support and grants is needed for people to sustain their basic livelihoods. And that is the key background I would want to put that, it's not enough, the 350, it should be increased. But this is also short-term measures, and, it's just a relief for the current hardships, but it's not sustainable in the long term,
So talk to us a little bit more about the survey that you've done. It's been said that when designing social grants, it should be within the constitutional context. So what do people understand about that? And when you talk to them about social relief of distress grant, do they understand it as a targeted short-term measure?
It's quite difficult to say. First of all, when you talk about the Constitution, that everybody has the basic right to food and basic right to education, etc. But how does that translate? How does the government ensure that everybody's got food on the table? Now, when you look at the people in their mind and you ask them, access to these basic necessities, it's quite difficult for them to understand, the more complex basic income grant proposal. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The vast majority of the poor are more entangled with the day-to-day things, and they need food on the table now. And that is why we found in some of our results here that, even the among the black population, they are less in support of the basic income grant than the other population groups, which was surprising for us. But that also indicates to us that there may be a lack of awareness and a lack of knowledge of what the basic income grant stands for. And also it may be because these category of people are quite busy accessing, the social relief grant, accessing the top-up grants, and making sure that they obtain these things just to survive. And so the longer-term goals is not really a priority for them. Although when you look at what civil society is promoting, these are more the lobby groups that understand, and education therefore is needed to kind of understand that longer-term solutions are necessary.
And when you talk about those disparities, I understand that your study has also shown that poverty and income play a role in influencing views on considering these grants.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite clear that when you're looking at some of our results, I mean, we found that those people who earn less than 5,000 Rand a month, almost 75% indicated that they're in favor of the top-ups. I mean, but even if you look at people who earn more than 5,000 Rand and those who said that they are fine in a way that they're not struggling, all those categories of people indicated and they supported the top-up grants, which indicates there's consensus among the South African public that broad-based and top-ups are needed to survive. And it's not, and what's quite clear for us, I mean, these higher categories, even those, some of them won't benefit directly by getting this grant, but they feel there is a need for the country to address the concerns of the plight of the poor.
So when we talk about a basic income grant, as you said, there have been many social players who have tried to influence how it should look like. But tell me about the analysis of your data. I believe it also shows some interesting patterns in support of this. And if you could just also tell us if political loyalties play a role.
Political will, yeah. Look, first of all, if you're looking at the basic income grant, I mean, support is variable. And I just need to give some background. Our survey was conducted in April and May, the first round, last year, 2020. And the second round was conducted in July and September last year, and the third round over the festive season, which was in December, ending in January the 6th. And our most recent survey was conducted here in June, ending in July. Now, when we look at that, and we've asked, the participants to indicate whether they would support the idea of a basic income grant. Now, we must understand that the basic income grant is not something that they've experienced like the top-ups as well as the social relief, the stress grants. So in a way, they're speculating, they're thinking what in future. However, in round one, it was highest, and we know this was in the hard lockdown in April last year, and about 65% said that they want this basic income grant. But here, mid-year, in July, September, this actually went down to about 61%. And then in round three over the festive season, even further down, 52%, and more recently, 53%. But overall, when you look at the average, about 58% of the population, which is relatively a sizable proportion of the population, which indicated they're in support of this grant. And we need to look at the drivers of this. And of course, we did say that for us, the biggest impact on this is, those people who've experienced hunger. And about 65% of our population has indicated on average over those four rounds that they have experiencing hunger.
Dr. Davids, before we run out of time, which we have, I do need to ask this. Was there an urban bias in some of the views that you received in terms of what the public really want?
Not necessarily. Our sample was relatively representative of the population at large, but we did not find any geographical differences, although you would find that in your informal settlements and your rural areas, there is a bigger need. But even among the city folk, there's still a big need. I mean, what we found was that there's definitely bigger support among women than men in terms of having the top-ups and the social relief grants. Okay. So that's so that there's a big need among women. And also, that for me was quite instrumental because most of them were single parents and coming at single households. So this is something that we need to look at.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Really appreciate it. Dr. Yule Davids is a Research Director in the Developmental, Capable and Ethical State Division of the Human Sciences Research Council.